I married a billionaire and became a stay-at-home husband. Everyone called me a gold digger, a kept man who only saw dollar signs. And why wouldn't they? In our circle, I was famous for my love of money. I couldn't care less. It was hilarious. They had no idea how happy I was. I spent my days living it up on my wife's dime, eating, drinking, and having the time of my life. But then the unthinkable happened. My billionaire wife went bankrupt. Everyone assumed I'd run for the hills, but I wanted to stay and help her rebuild her empire. After all, I'd gotten used to being a kept man. The mansion was a wreck. I had smashed everything in sight. Diana Vance, dressed in a chic white designer suit, sat on the sofa, pressing a hand to her temple as if nursing a headache. But I wasn't done, and I rounded on her. My finger pointed accusingly as I let loose. Did you find some boy toy? Is that it? You're faking this whole bankruptcy thing just to kick me to the curb, aren't you? Diana let out a long, weary sigh. Frank, everything I've told you is true. Your best option right now is to take your things and leave me. I was seething, and I let out a cold snort at her words. Yeah, right. Who's going to believe that? Billions of dollars don't just vanish overnight. Diana's face hardened, her expression icy. I'm telling you the truth, believe it or not. With a final, cold glance in my direction, she stood up and turned to leave. I watched her go, and in a fit of rage, I swept the fruit bowl off the coffee table, sending it crashing to the floor. She spun around, her eyes flashing with fury, and I jabbed a finger in her direction. I'm telling you, don't even think about getting rid of me. Wherever you go, I go. Diana stared at me, completely stunned. I just snorted and turned my head, refusing to look at her. I stomped my way up the stairs, and as soon as I was out of her sight, I let out a huge sigh of relief. She really pissed me off today, bringing up divorce out of the blue. I mean, who else would spoil me like a child if I left her? I'd already seen the news about the Vance Corporation's bankruptcy on their official site, but I knew it was only temporary. The Diana I knew would lead the company back to the top, creating a business empire of her own. Because just a day ago, I was transported into a novel. I was now a character in The Magnate's Return, a story about a powerhouse female CEO with her own business empire. This CEO had a worthless husband who did nothing but eat, drink, and party. In the book, the moment he learned she was bankrupt, he packed his bags and forced her into a divorce. He took her money and continued his lavish lifestyle, shamelessly declaring, "Diana, you don't understand me. I want a gentle, understanding wife, and you're not the right one for me." Later, when she was back on top, he had the audacity to crawl back and ask to get remarried, only to be thrown out and eventually die next to a dumpster. The good news was that I had become that useless husband. The bad news was that I had arrived right at the point where the CEO had just gone bankrupt. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose as I stared at the chaotic bedroom, clothes and expensive watches strewn everywhere. Resigned to my fate, I started to clean up. Seriously, who gets this? If you're going to get dropped into a novel, why does the scumbag get all the fun while I get all the suffering? When I showed up downstairs loaded with bags, Diana stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. You're not actually coming with me, are you? I just hoisted my luggage and motioned for her to lead on. She still looked skeptical, but she took me to a small apartment. Diana's mother, Mrs. Vance, was still in shock from the bankruptcy and cried the entire way. The car pulled up in front of an old, rundown apartment building in Queens. The street was pitted with puddles from a recent rain. The sight of it made Mrs. Vance break down completely, and Diana quickly helped her inside, shooting a look at me over her shoulder. The look seemed to say, "See, now do you believe me? Huh?" As if I was a guy who gave up that easily. Before all this, I was just another corporate drone working 9 to 5. Sometimes things got so hectic I'd end up sleeping on the office floor. The cramped apartment was filled with second-hand furniture, and when I saw there were only 2 bedrooms, my heart sank. How were we supposed to sleep tonight? Sure, the original Frank and Diana were married, but I wasn't him. What are you gawking at? Start unpacking. You don't expect the 2 of us women to do everything, do you? Mrs. Vance snapped, her eyes full of resentment as she looked me over with disdain. I sighed and glanced at Diana, the powerhouse CEO who, according to the book, had never done a day of manual labor in her life. She was currently staggering through the door, struggling with a heavy box. I strode over and took the box from her. Diana looked at me, surprised. "Get out of the way, I need to bring this inside." I didn't say a word, just took the box, set it down easily, and then started organizing all of our belongings. After all, if I was going to live here, I couldn't just let the women do all the work while I did nothing. That would be pathetic. I worked for hours, and by the time I had everything put away, Night had fallen. I collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted, and Diana sat down next to me, a look of surprise mixed with relief on her face. "You seem different," she said. I was too tired to move, but I managed to force a weak smile. "What do you mean? I'm the same old me." Diana opened her mouth to say something else, but my stomach cut her off with a loud growl. Diana broke into a small, amused smile. I was so embarrassed I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I cleared my throat. "I'll just go see what we have to eat in the kitchen." Diana cut me off, acting as if nothing had happened. It was fine when I wasn't looking at her, but the moment I did, the images from the book flooded my mind, and I couldn't shake them. Seeing my silence, Diana reached out, wrapping an arm around my neck and rising onto her toes. The cool touch of her hand on my skin was a brief relief from the heat rushing through me, and the clean scent of her body wash made me close my eyes instinctively. Her hand came to rest on my forehead. "You don't have a fever," she said, looking at me with confusion. Her words were like a bucket of ice water, shocking me back to my senses. My tone was sharp as I turned and sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm fine." Diana seemed puzzled by my reaction, but didn't press it, instead sitting down across from me. "All right, if you're fine, then we need to talk." A million questions raced through my mind, but I kept them to myself. Diana didn't give me a chance to ask anyway. "You saw the situation today. The bankruptcy is real, and I don't have some other man. So let's just get a divorce. I have $50,000 left in my account. My mom and I will need $10,000 to live on. You can have the rest as a final settlement." She delivered the words in a flat, even tone, then fell silent, looking directly into my eyes. I felt a surge of anger. She still didn't believe I would stay with her. "So, you're still trying to get rid of me?" Diana shook her head. "It's not that I'm kicking you out. I'm just worried you won't be able to handle living like this. You used to throw a fit if your mattress was even a little too firm." I was at a loss for words. The original Frank was more high maintenance than anyone I knew. My eyes darted around the room as I tried to think of what to say. "I'm staying right here. Wherever you go, I go," I declared. Then I rolled over, pulled the covers over my head, and pretended to go to sleep. I could feel her eyes on my back for a long time, right up until I started to drift off. In the haze between waking and sleeping, I thought I felt someone lie down behind me. By the time I woke up, Diana was already gone, leaving me and Mrs. Vance to stare awkwardly at each other. To break the tension, I headed for the door, but I could hear her muttering complaints behind me. "I was worried you two would come home to an empty table, so I tried to cook. But who knew even the spatula wouldn't cooperate with me?" I was momentarily speechless. I gently guided her out of the kitchen and started cleaning up the mess. Mrs. Vance watched me with a suspicious eye, but she steeled herself. "Maybe I should just do it," she offered hesitantly. I firmly kept her out of the kitchen and got to work. When I brought out a full spread of hot food, Mrs. Vance's eyes were wide with disbelief. After all, the old me was only good for eating and fooling around. The door clicked open and Diana walked in. Her expression mirrored her mother's as she pointed at the table, asking uncertainly, "You made this?" I nodded proudly. Fearing she wouldn't believe me, I gestured to Mrs. Vance for confirmation. After her mother nodded, a genuine smile spread across Diana's face as she offered sincere praise. "You did a good job." Diana left again after dinner. As it happened, someone messaged me about one of the luxury items I'd listed for sale online, asking if I could meet them to show it. I grabbed a bag and slipped out. For some reason, the guy wanted me to meet him at a bar, which seemed strange. As I stood outside the bar, I saw her across the street. Diana was behind the wheel of a supercar, with a young, handsome guy in the passenger seat, and they sped off. What the hell? I thought she was broke. How could she afford a car like that? On impulse, I followed them, needing to know what was going on. I watched as they both went into a hotel. Staring at the hotel entrance, a sour feeling grew in my stomach. Following her was just asking for trouble. I was about to turn and leave, feeling dejected, when a thought struck me. This didn't make sense. Diana was a person of integrity. She wouldn't do something like this while we were still married. I endured the gossipy stares of the front desk clerk and, mortified, managed to get the room number before rushing upstairs. I stood outside the door, my hand raised to knock, but I hesitated. My resolve wavered. What if she really was cheating on me? What would I do then? Thankfully, I didn't have long to second-guess myself. The sound of something crashing came from inside the room. My heart leaped into my throat, and I mashed the doorbell. When there was no answer, I started pressing it again and again, frantically. An annoyed man's voice yelled from within. "Who the hell is it? You're interrupting something important." He didn't finish his sentence before I heard a woman's cry, followed by a yelp of pain. Diana, you bitch, you dare to hit me? A commotion erupted inside. A moment later, the door flew open and Diana appeared, her clothes in disarray, the top 2 buttons of her blouse missing. She was trying to flee and, in her panic, ran right into my arms. She looked up, her eyes wide with fear, and seemed to finally recognize me. A look of hurt crossed her face, and a single tear escaped and ran down her cheek. What are you doing here? A wave of awkwardness washed over me as I opened my mouth to explain, but an enraged voice from the room cut me off. Diana, I'm doing you a favor by even touching you, and you have the nerve to fight back? Don Keller, wearing nothing but a pair of pants, swaggered to the doorway. He stopped when he saw me, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed and a mocking smirk on his face. Well, if it isn't the kept man. You actually followed her here. What's the point? This isn't the first time for me and your wife. You're in it for the money, so just take the money and stay out of our business. Diana pointed a trembling finger at Don, her voice choked with anger. You're lying. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Don't listen to him. He's lying. I didn't do anything. At that point, I understood everything. It was obvious Don was trying to take advantage of her. He used to be like a fawning dog whenever Diana was around, but now that she'd lost her power, he was kicking her while she was down. The guy was pure scum. When I didn't say anything, the hope in Diana's eyes faded to despair. Don just laughed lewdly. Still here, pretty boy? What, you want to join in? At his words, Diana raised her hand to slap him, but I gritted my teeth and caught her wrist. They both stared at me, stunned. I pushed Diana back out into the hallway, stepped inside the room, and locked the door behind me. Don watched me with a dismissive sneer before turning back toward the sofa. What's this, Mr. Gold Digger? You think you're going to fight me? Get the hell out of here if you know what's good for you. I gritted my teeth, a cold smile forming on my lips as a fire ignited in my chest. I grabbed him and threw a punch straight into his solar plexus. Before he could even react, I was on top of him, raining blows down on his stomach as I cursed him out. You piece of trash. Diana never did anything but help you, and the second she's in trouble, you pull this crap. I'm going to beat the hell out of you today. I beat Don until he was a whimpering mess on the floor, begging me to stop. I could hear frantic pounding on the door and Diana's panicked voice. Frank, what are you doing? Open the door. I paused, and Don flinched as I simply lifted my hand, cowering and covering his stomach. I had to laugh. I patted his cheek. Listen up, kid. If you ever try to lay a hand on my wife again, I'll find you, and I'll do this all over again. And don't even think about calling the cops, because when I get out, I'll make sure you never have a moment of peace. Don's whole body trembled at my words, and he nodded his head frantically. Room service finally got the door open. Diana rushed in, her worried eyes immediately finding me. I gave her a small smile to show I was okay. Under my threatening glare, Don knew better than to say a word and just took the beating. The autumn afternoon air was warm and heavy, with the occasional chirp of a bird in the trees. Diana and I walked down the street in silence. I could feel her despair, but I didn't know how to comfort her. To have been on top of the world one day and then fall so far, to be at the mercy of scum like Don, it would break anyone. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. Diana turned to me, a weak, forced smile on her lips. You must think I'm pathetic now, don't you? Don Keller used to kiss the ground I walked on, and now even he can humiliate me whenever he wants. Maybe women are just supposed to rely on men after all. No, I cut in immediately, my heart aching for her, though I struggled to find the right words. You don't have to put yourself down. You were born to be like the moon, bright and one of a kind. Right now, the clouds are just blocking your light, making you seem dim. But I believe that one day, those clouds will part, and you'll shine again. Diana stared at me, as if she couldn't believe I was the one saying these things. Her eyes, bright as if they held all the stars, reflected my own image back at me, and for a moment, I felt like I was a part of her world. Then, a film of water veiled those stars, hiding their light. She covered her face with her hands and began to sob. My heart broke for her. I pulled her into an embrace, gently patting her back. Go on, cry. Let it all out. You'll still be that dazzling moon, and everyone else will just have to watch you shine from a distance. After what felt like both an eternity and a few short minutes, Diana pulled back, looking sheepishly at the wet patch of tears on my shirt. I got your shirt all wet. I couldn't help but smile at her comment, and when she caught me, I quickly cleared my throat. It's fine, we'll just, I started to say, before a mischievous idea popped into my head. I leaned in closer to her. When we get back, I'll have to ask my dear wife to wash it for me." Just as I'd hoped, I saw her ears turn a delightful shade of red, and my spirits lifted. Diana shot me a shy glare, and I took the opportunity to take her hand in mine as we continued our afternoon walk. The original Frank was a real idiot. He had a beautiful, brilliant wife and threw it all away for some superficial fantasy. After that day, our relationship grew much closer, and even Mrs. Vance started treating me better. I finally sold the last of my luxury goods online, and when I saw the balance in my account, I laughed out loud. Now Diana had the startup capital she needed. In the novel, she had to go through hell to raise this money, facing countless rejections and humiliations. Reading it, I had felt so helpless, wishing I could reach through the pages and help her. That evening, under a knowing look from Mrs. Vance, I pulled a completely bewildered Diana into our room. She was still looking dazed as I sat her down on the bed. I solemnly placed the debit card in her hand. She looked from the card to me, confused. "What is this?" I showed her the account balance on my phone. Her jaw dropped in astonishment. Then her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Where did you get this much money?" I smiled and explained how I'd sold all my watches and designer clothes. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to shock, and finally, to a look of deep concern. "You could have kept all that for yourself. Why would you sell it?" I tilted my chin up, feigning arrogance. "In my hands, that stuff just loses value. It's only good for appearances. But in your hands, this money gives you another shot. And if you succeed, well, then I can have anything I want, right?" I knew she would succeed, of course, but I couldn't just say that. It would sound unbelievable. This was the only way to encourage her without raising suspicion. Diana was still hesitant. "You said if you succeed." I placed my hands on her shoulders. "Hey, what's done is done. I've already sold everything, and I can't buy it back for the same price. Are you really going to let my investment go to waste, leaving me with nothing?" She thought for a moment, then shook her head, her grip on my hand firm and determined. "Frank, don't worry. I won't let you down. I know you won't." The cloud of despair that had been hanging over her seemed to vanish in an instant. The confident, radiant woman I knew from the book was back, and she was dazzling. Maybe it was the gentle breeze, or the sound of the city humming outside the window, but that night, the moon fell into my arms and was completely mine. After she got the money, Diana became incredibly busy, leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night. It pained me to see her working so hard, and all I could do was hold her and offer what comfort I could in the dead of night. But true to form, she didn't disappoint. In just 2 months, she had doubled the initial investment. That night, I helped a very drunk Diana out of a restaurant after a business dinner. I got her settled in the passenger seat, and as soon as I sat down to drive, she threw her arms around my neck with a goofy grin and planted a loud kiss on my cheek. "Frank, I'm so glad I have you. I'm so happy. It won't be long now before we can move back." She tilted her head, her eyes hazy with drink as she looked into mine. "Are you happy, Frank?" Her joy was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile. "Of course I'm happy." Suddenly, the scene in front of me warped. The space around us seemed to twist, and Diana's voice sounded distant and muffled, as if it were coming from behind a thick pane of glass. I shook my head sharply, and everything snapped back to normal. Diana was still talking, her lips moving. A wave of indescribable sorrow washed over me, a sudden, sharp panic that I was about to lose something precious. I glanced at Diana, still muttering drunkenly, and started the car. Taking a deep breath, I told myself I was just sleep-deprived from trying to keep up with her schedule. Her phone started ringing from inside her purse. Diana, half asleep, fumbled for it and shoved it at me. "You get it," she mumbled, before passing out again. The caller ID was blocked, but I answered. Before I could even say hello, Don Keller's furious voice erupted from the speaker. "Diana, damn it, the old saying is true. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. You venomous bitch, are you trying to completely destroy me?" I listened to his tirade, my heart aching as I looked at Diana sleeping peacefully. She had been dealing with this all on her own, without me knowing. How helpless she must have felt. When I didn't respond, Don got more agitated. "Diana, what? Are you mute now?" I clenched my jaw and spoke in a low voice. "Diana's had too much to drink. Call back tomorrow if it's important." A mocking laugh came through the phone, followed by Don's voice, tight with rage. "Oh, it's the kept man. Do you have any idea what your precious Diana has been doing? She stole my clients, sabotaged all of my contracts. She's a demon, trying to wipe me off the map completely." I already knew most of this without him telling me. Diana didn't get to the top by being soft. In the book, she became even more ruthless after her comeback. But Don had it coming. No matter how the story played out, he was always the one to betray her first. Don was still ranting when I cut him off. So what if she's ruthless? You're a pathetic dog who'd sell out anyone for a scrap. You have no right to even say her name. If you ever speak about her like that again, I'll break your legs. There was a crazed edge to Don's laugh. Oh yeah? You and what army? Suddenly, the phone was plucked from my hand. Diana's voice was calm, but I could hear the fury simmering beneath the surface. That's right, just him. And if you ever cross the line again, I'll be the one to break your legs. A warmth spread through my chest. She was defending me. The more time I spent with her, the more I realized what a complete fool the original Frank was. He had an intelligent, powerful, and loving wife and threw her away to chase some ridiculous fantasy of true love. The guy was an idiot. Diana hung up the phone. I could feel her gaze on me, like she wanted to say something but was holding back. Our eyes met in the rearview mirror, and I decided to break the silence. If you have something to say, just say it. She chose her words carefully. Can you still like me when I'm like this? Do you think I'm a terrible person? I was stunned. I hadn't realized Don's words would affect her so much. I reached over and took her hand. All I need to know is that you're my wife. That's enough for me. Diana let out a long sigh, as if a great weight had been lifted, and promptly fell back asleep. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did she really wake up just to tell Don off and get a promise from me? That call didn't deter her at all. In fact, she began to openly dismantle Don's company. He was eventually forced into bankruptcy and disappeared. We moved back into the mansion. It was just as we'd left it, a complete disaster zone. Diana and I looked at each other and smiled, both remembering the day we left. I shook my head, feigning regret. You know, if I'd known we'd be back, I wouldn't have smashed everything. It hurts to see all our nice things broken. So you knew it was yours, and you smashed it anyway? Now look, that priceless dinnerware set is ruined. You're such a waste, Mrs. Vance scolded. I froze, glancing at Diana, who was clearly enjoying the show. I forced a smile and turned to her mother. You're right, Mom. It's my fault. I'll be more careful next time. Mrs. Vance's voice rose. A next time? You think there's going to be a next time? My smile was starting to feel strained. I shot a desperate, pleading look at Diana. She just laughed and stepped in. Okay, Mom, that's enough. Out with the old, in with the new. I'll buy you a new set. Mrs. Vance gave Diana a disapproving look. You're just as bad as he is. Diana just coaxed her mother back to her room, shooting me a playful wink over her shoulder. As soon as they were out of sight, I started to clean up the mess. But then that feeling of panic washed over me again, even stronger this time. The space in front of me twisted and warped, and for a moment, I could clearly see my old apartment, the one from before I came into this world. There was someone slumped over the desk, asleep in front of a computer. On the screen was the novel I'd been reading, but the words were flickering and rearranging themselves at a frantic pace before going still. The vision vanished, and my heart hammered against my ribs. I felt like I'd just been pulled from underwater, gasping and terrified. Last time, I'd blamed it on exhaustion. But what was this? A sign that I was being sent back? The thought sent a chill down my spine. A hand waved in front of my face, and I saw Diana looking at me with concern. Frank, what's wrong? Overwhelmed with a fear I couldn't explain, I pulled her into a tight embrace. Her presence the only thing that felt real. No, I'm not going back. Maybe that other world was the dream. Yes, that's it, this is real. I tried desperately to convince myself, but the anxiety wouldn't go away. I was distracted and on edge for days, and though Diana was worried, she gave me my space. Her quiet presence slowly eased my anxiety, and the panic began to fade. As I stopped constantly fearing that I would be ripped away, the strange visions stopped completely. Diana rebuilt her empire, and today was her birthday. I wanted to give her something special. That morning, I told her mysteriously to be home early. She gave me a curious look. What are you planning now, Frank? I cleared my throat, putting on a serious air. That's a secret. You'll find out when you get home. Diana just rolled her eyes, shook her head, and got out of the car. The day dragged on, feeling like an eternity. I checked my watch every few minutes, terrified I'd be late to pick her up. I clutched the small box in my pocket, imagining the look on her face when she saw the ring. We were already married, but that was the old Frank. I wanted us to have a real wedding, our wedding. As her workday was ending, I checked for the ring one last time and headed out the door. The morning had been bright and sunny, but of course, a downpour started the moment I left. Traffic was at a standstill. As the minutes ticked by, a knot of panic formed in my stomach. Diana called, telling me not to rush, but I was still late. The moment I saw her standing outside her office building, however, the panic vanished. I gripped the ring box, about to get out, when a pair of bright headlights appeared in the distance. A car was speeding directly toward Diana. My mind went blank. Without a second thought, I slammed my foot on the accelerator and swerved, aiming my car at the other vehicle. As I got closer, I saw Don Keller's crazed face behind the wheel. He was trying to kill her. Everything went white. The last thing I saw was Diana stumbling toward me, tears streaming down her face as she desperately tried to wrench open my car door. "Frank, don't fall asleep. You can't sleep." The world twisted again. This time, the person slumped over the desk was me. I stretched, my back aching, and looked at the words on my computer screen. The ending of The Magnate's Return had changed. The weak protagonist had stayed with his wife, helped her rebuild her empire, and in the end, sacrificed himself to save her from death. Diana Vance never remarried, choosing instead to adopt a child. So, love really could conquer all. You could love someone enough to die for them. I had a nagging feeling the story used to be different, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember how. I shook my head, amused. It felt like I'd just woken up from an incredibly vivid dream, but the details were already gone. I moved to shut down my computer, but something fell from my lap and clattered on the floor. A ring. And suddenly, I was crying, tears streaming down my face as memories flooded my mind, a highlight reel of every moment I had spent with Diana. The text on the screen began to shift and rewrite itself into a new ending. An ending where Frank never got in that car crash, and Diana lived a long, happy life. The final sentence hit me like a physical blow. To whoever you are, thank you. You allowed me to forget my loss. And when I awoke, everything I ever wanted was right here beside me. The original Frank really was the author's favorite, wasn't he? I was the one who went through all the hardship, but he was the one who got the reward. I tried everything I could think of to get back, to tell Diana that it was me. I was the one who had been with her through it all. But it was useless. It's laughable, really. I was drawn to the moon's brilliance, and for a short time, I even got to hold it. But in the end, all I can do is watch as the moon that should have been mine falls into another man's arms.